To see just what might lie hidden in their veins, Jacqueline, Mark, Beulah, and many others volunteered for a groundbreaking genetic study for this film, the most comprehensive of its kind.
Basically, I have no idea, none at all, so...
Right, well,
Beulah was one of 229 volunteers selected for the study. To be eligible, participants had to have 4 grandparents of African Caribbean origin.
and your father's mother?
Jamaica.
And your mother?
Jamaica.
Okay, Beulah, we've done the paperwork, so this is where we're going to take the sample.
Could Beulah and the others find out where in Africa their ancestors came from by giving us just a few cells from the inside of their cheeks? People hoping to reclaim their lost African roots came from across the UK. Samples came from Aberdeen, Manchester, Bristol, Leeds, Leicester, and London.
Yoruba, the Ashanti, Fon, Zulu. I feel like a Xhosa. I do feel so African. The Iwe, the Wolof, the Mandinka, Hausa possibly as well.
A lot of people know about them history going back to slavery. So what about the history of your people before the white man interfered?
Trying to find myself and my root and heritage is more to me than anything.
Africa's a big place, so if someone can pinpoint it down to me, I've got to have it.
So how can DNA tell us about our ancestry? Each of us has our own unique DNA, our genetic profile, and yet we inherited every one of our genes from our 2 parents. Take Mark. His genes come from his mother and father, and theirs from his grandparents. And the number of his direct ancestors doubles with every generation.
It's like a funnel, and we're at the base of the funnel, the smallest part of that funnel. There we stand as a single individual. And it goes on, and it increases, and it gets bigger and bigger, and as you go back in time, it gets huge numbers of people who are our direct ancestors, not our aunts, not our uncles, not cousins. They're direct ancestors, and each of them has contributed their DNA to us at the base of that funnel, right there. So we are a part of all of those people. They are all in us.
For Mark, the height of the slave trade in 1760 was roughly 11 generations ago. That makes 2,048 ancestors in little more than 200 years. The best clues that genetics can currently offer us about our roots come from the 2 outer lines of this funnel, our direct paternal and maternal lineages. Like all males, Mark inherited his Y chromosome from his father, who inherited it from his father, all the way back to our common male ancestor 100,000 years ago in Africa. And like all men and women, Mark has also inherited mitochondrial DNA exclusively from his mother, because it's passed down through her egg. She, in turn, got it from her mother, back and back through the generations. Occasionally, small mistakes are made when the DNA is passed on, so a slightly different genetic blueprint is then inherited by the next generation. It's these mutations which allow us to look at differences between people.
When the mutations come in, or other events that skew the change, alter the genetic message, then it gives us something interesting to study and try to reconstruct and figure out, like a detective story.
The samples in our study were sent to the universities of Cambridge and Leicester, and to Penn State University in the USA. Over 6 months, the DNA was extracted, sequenced, and analyzed.
I'm carrying the whole heritage, my whole family's history around in a little cell, yeah. It's like a map, really. It's like a map of your whole history. I like that. I like the idea that it really kind of undisputedly can tell me exactly where I've been and what has gone into making me. That's exciting.
The scientists compared our samples to sequences already collected from all over the world, and from Africa in particular.
There really is no biological DNA-based justification for the old idea of races, of groups or stocks who have diverged from each other a long, long time ago. That's just not the case. But there are bits of DNA who, because of their history, do show differences between populations, and that's what we've exploited here.
Leicester analysed the paternal lineage, Cambridge the maternal. Penn State looked at the DNA from all our ancestors to establish the amount of African and European ancestry in each individual.
You can't tell by looking at somebody what their ancestry level is. You know, skin color might tell you a little bit, and often you'll be right, but there are a lot of instances. For example, me, I'm 25% African. You wouldn't guess it looking at me, would you? But that's the situation.
As results day finally arrives, Jacqueline and her family in Jamaica anticipate the news from Mark Shriver.
You will find African blood, traces of it there, but I think the majority is on a 60-40 basis.
I don't quantify it like that. I can't.
60 English, 40 Jamaican.
40 Afro.
55-45.
Yes.
55-45.
Yes, about.
Beulah heads to Cambridge to find out about her maternal roots. Mark to Leicester to discover his father's line.
My fantasy ancestry is most probably to find out I'm from Ghana, somewhere in West Africa. I'll find out that I'm from a royal lineage. Find out that I'm an ancient African prince, and my family are royalty. That'll be excellent.
I had to spend some time with my mum yesterday before I travelled up to Cambridge. And that was, I think it suddenly dawned on me for the first time that it's not just about me. It's kind of like the DNA belongs to all of us.
But I'm a bit scared now. I'm not, doubt is starting to set in. I'm not sure exactly what I'm gonna hear.
At the MacDonald Institute in Cambridge, they've collated a database with every mitochondrial DNA sequence ever published.
Hello. Oh, hi.
Dr. Forster?
Yes.
Hello, Beulah.
Beulah, nice to meet
Yes.
you. Okay.
The database is not exhaustive, but it may hold the key to Beulah's quest. If Beulah is to go to Africa, Peter Forster needs to find a match with her sample.
Okay, so this is your sample, F124. So this is derived from perhaps just a few hundred saliva cells. And now it's several micrograms of DNA, a few millionths of a gram of DNA, which is not much, but it's sufficient to actually determine the mutations which distinguish you from other people.
Okay, can I just touch?
Of course you can. Yes.
Thanks.
Hello? Jacqueline? This is Mark Shriver. Right. Yeah, I'm calling from the United States.
You've been known to us as F800.
Tell me again.
F800.
Right.
The F
Okay.
is female.
S800.
Yeah.
S800.
I'm actually sitting on the veranda with my aunt and my grandmother. Anyway, what have you got to tell me?
Here's your one, your M2. So you have 24.
Mark is hoping that Leicester geneticist Mark Joblin can tell him where in Africa he should go.
So that's your Y chromosome fingerprint. But this is enough information. If you now click search, it's going to look in a database now.
The result is unexpected.
The red circles mean there's a match to your Y chromosome.
Okay.
The blue circles mean a population samples where there isn't a match. So that's Moscow. So there's somebody in Moscow who matches you. You've got lots of samples in Germany and Central Europe which match you. So what this tells us is that your Y chromosome, which is only one small part of your DNA, remember, it's 2% of your DNA, your Y chromosome has a European origin.
Okay.
So your paternal lineage, if you like, which is just one of the lines of descent that you have, traces back not to Africa, but to Europe instead.
Wow, that is a shock. That is a deep shock.
But you're not unusual. In this study, about 25% of this group of over 100 Afro-Caribbean men have Y chromosomes which don't trace back to Africa but trace back to Europe.
You left me gobsmacked. I wasn't expecting to hear that at all.
Yeah, I'd like to tell you about your